Hello back, class. We talked already in the previous two videos about the subject and the predicate, and as I told you on the last video, we are going to be working from now on elements only found in the predicate. Okay, so we are going to start this video by talking about the different objects that we find in the sentence. So we'll say that in a sentence we can find three different possible objects. We can find a direct object, an indirect object, and a retained object. It is important to know that these three objects are not necessarily found together in every sentence, okay? I can have a sentence in which I only have a direct object, or I can have a sentence in which I only have a retained object. I also have the possibility to have an indirect object and a direct object in the sentence, yes, but I cannot have just an indirect object. That is not possible. If I have an indirect object in a sentence, and I need you to remember this because it is important, by force I must have a direct object. What about a retained object? Can I have a retained object and an indirect object, or a retained object and a direct object? No, that is not possible. We only find retained objects in passive voice, and direct objects and indirect objects are found in active voice. Alright, let's talk about the direct object. See, direct objects are identified in a sentence by asking the question what or whom after the verb. This is very important. After the verb, we ask the question what, or we ask the question whom, or who. Many people simply say who, informally. But it is extremely important that you ask it after the verb. Why so? Because I can ask the question what or whom in other places in the sentence, and I am not going to get a direct object. For example, if I read the first sentence with me, guys, it says, the kid ate his lunch greedily. Yes, the kid ate his lunch greedily, and you can see the kid over there is biting the poor dog, right? So if I ask the question, who ate? The kid ate. Then the kid is the direct object. No, that's not the right way to ask the question. So I ask, the kid ate who? No answer. See, no answer. What if I say, the kid ate what? Oh, the kid ate his lunch. See, it has an answer for the question what, but remember, it's after the verb. If you ask it in some other place, you're gonna get an answer, possibly, to that question, but it doesn't mean that that is the direct object. Let's see, here is the analysis. The kid ate what? He ate his lunch. So obviously lunch is the direct object. Teacher, what if it's more than one word that is, well, like in this case it's more than one word, right? His lunch is 2 words. So we are going to classify the phrase as the direct object. If I said something like, the grandmother loved all of her grandchildren very much, what is the direct object? The grandmother loved who? All of her grandchildren very much. No, not very much. Yeah, but she loved them very much. Yes, but very much does not answer the question whom. The grandmother loved whom? All of her grandchildren. How much? Very much. See? So don't include parts that do not correspond to the direct question, well, to the direct answer to the question what. The grandmother loved whom? All of her grandchildren. So all of that phrase would be the direct object. So this is us answering the question what. What about answering the question whom? Now we see Christian over there. Christian has not been behaving very well lately. So remember that we can also ask the question whom, and we'll also find the direct object, but we gotta ask the question after the, yes, you got it, after the verb. Let's see this example. I saw Christian in a nightclub. I saw Christian in a nightclub. Check this out. If I say, I saw Christian in a what? A nightclub. Direct object nightclub. You're making a mistake. Well, I'm making a mistake because I am not asking the question after the verb. See, I say, I saw Christian in a what? A nightclub. Is the nightclub the direct object? No, because I cannot find it here. I can only find the direct object after the verb. I saw whom. In this case, I saw whom. Oh, I saw Christian. That's who I saw. Yes? So I will say that Christian is the direct object. Christian is all ashamed because I caught him there. Right? Oh, Christian, you misbehaved once again. So, teacher, does every sentence have a direct object? No, not every sentence has a direct object. And I can have a sentence that has a simple predicate, and of course I will not find a direct object there. But I can have a sentence that is made up of more than only the simple predicate, and I don't necessarily have a direct object. How so? Well, because sometimes I decide not to include it. If I say something like, I had fun last night, nothing answers the question what or whom. It's not an obligation. Besides, we need to have specific verbs. Specific verbs allow me to have direct objects. When I talk about specific verbs, maybe you remember these, maybe you studied it in another subject, or maybe you have studied this topic by yourselves. We have different ways to classify verbs, of course. We have transitive, intransitive, and linking verbs. Some other people talk about regular and irregular, but right now I want to focus on transitive and intransitive verbs. And of course, linking verbs. Those are the three types of verbs that we think of when we are doing sentence analysis. And we say that we can only find a direct object after a transitive verb. And how do I identify a transitive verb? Well, because you can answer the question what after the transitive verb. Think about this. Think about this possibility for you to identify if it's a transitive verb. Can I verb something? If I say, can I play something? Yes, I can play the guitar, or I can play the piano, or I can say I can play basketball. So yes, I have an answer. I can verb something. I can play something. So if I have a positive answer, then I say that that verb is a transitive verb. If I say, can I eat something? Yes, I can eat, I don't know, a hamburger. Yeah, it's possible. What if I say, can I travel something? I can travel. No, I cannot travel something. I can travel somewhere, right? I can travel somewhere, but I cannot travel something, or I cannot travel someone. And so I know that that verb is not transitive. That verb is intransitive. And I'll discuss about linking verbs later on in an upcoming video, because I don't want to overcharge you with information right now. But you gotta remember this. You need to have a transitive verb. And how do you identify a transitive verb? Well, you identify it by asking the question, can I verb something? And if you get an answer, well, can I verb something, or can I verb someone, right? If you get an answer, then yes, you have a transitive verb. and the possibility, not the obligation, the possibility to have a direct object. What about indirect objects? Okay, indirect objects only happen, I repeat, only happen if you already have a direct object. Only in this case. And again, it's not an obligation to have an indirect object if you find the direct object. Sometimes you have the indirect object and sometimes you don't. I can say to find the indirect object, to what for what, to whom and for whom. And it's very important that you know that we have a specific placement for indirect objects in the sentence. The indirect object is going to be located before the direct object. Okay? Here is what I told you some minutes ago. Keep in mind that you will not find an indirect object if you don't have a direct object. It's not possible. Now, see this example. The peasant gave the king his son's sword. The peasant handed the king his son's sword. The peasant handed. Can you hand something? Yes, I can hand something. Like I can hand an apple. Yes, so it's possible to say that this is it's possible to say that I have a direct object. So the peasant handed what? Did he hand it the king? Like, here, take this king. No, right? No, he handed his son's sword. Here is my son's sword. Yes, here it is. Take it. Yes, that's what he handed. He handed what? His son's sword. And now I ask, because I have a possibility for a person here, I simply know that it's to whom. To whom or for whom? To whom? To the king. So the king is the indirect object. It's the recipient of the direct object. This is the direct object. Who receives the direct object? The king. Get it? So that's only one example, of course, of an indirect object. And you gotta remember that we will only find indirect objects if we have a direct object and before the direct object. So in your subject we will work on the assumption that you cannot have an indirect object after a direct object. Okay, here is the explanation why I insist that the indirect object goes before the direct object, because if we move it, then what we are going to find instead of an indirect object is going to be an object of a preposition. Of course, regarding meaning, yes, it's the indirect object, it's the recipient of the indirect object. But remember that if you have a preposition, you must have an object for the preposition. So check this out. Roger sold a car for me. In this case, Roger sold what? A car. This is the direct object. For whom? For me. But this is not the object of, this is not an indirect object. Why not? Because this is the object of the preposition for, right? It's different if I say Roger sold me a car. Roger sold me a car. Roger sold what? A car. For whom? For me. Hey teacher, but it's the same. Yes, it's the same idea. But remember that we are studying structure. We are studying syntax, right? In grammar, we are taking this syntax approach. This is the object of me, right? But I'm afraid that our time for this video has come to an end, and I will continue talking about the retained object on the next video, guys. I'll see you in the next one.